temperature around 6 to 8 degrees. Now, what about part 2 of the weekend? Well, most will be dry on Sunday, though we'll see increasing cloud in the far north later. Some bright or sunny spells after a cloudy start, but your temperature, if anything, will be a notch down on Sunday compared with Saturday. So the chilly feel to the weather will continue, not just for the weekend, into the start of next week as well. More details for your weekend available online. Fiona.
Thanks very much, Nick. A reminder of tonight's main news. Colonel Gaddafi has cracked down on opposition attempts to mount fresh demonstrations in the Libyan capital. It's nearly 6:30. Stay with us. Now it's time to join the BBC's news teams where you are. Bye-bye.
In Look East tonight.
It's very distressing for them to know that nobody saw what happened, which is quite unbelievable, really.
A family's frustration because they still don't know how their son died on a scout trip. Hello from Susie and me.
Also tonight, UK border officials swoop off the Essex coast to seize a fortune in banknotes bound for Libya.
Fire crews from Essex helping out in New Zealand in the search for victims of the earthquake.
And Prince Charles sees the funny side on a visit to Bury St Edmunds. Hello. The Scout Association has accepted full liability for the death of a 6-year-old boy on an adventure trip. It also says it's tightened up safety procedures following the tragedy in Suffolk.
Today, the coroner recorded an open verdict on the death of Alan Locke, a young beaver scout who drowned after falling into a river during an open-air walk. After the inquest, Alan's parents said they were frustrated because they still don't know how their son died. In a moment, we'll be hearing from the Scout Association, but first, this report from Kevin Birch.
For the parents of Alan Locke, despite 3 days of evidence, the answers they sought never came. How their son ended up in the river in Sudbury as unclear tonight as ever. Did he wander off unseen and fall from the riverbank on this scavenging trip with 17 other beavers and 4 supervising adults? Or did he fall from the bridge itself? Neither scenario was likely, said the coroner. He wasn't a reckless, risk-taking boy. Clearly, this has been a traumatic inquest, first and foremost for Alan's parents, who were in tears as the verdict came. But also for the team who were with the beavers that evening. Many struggled as they gave evidence and recalled what happened. In the words of the coroner, clearly, we had people who were public-spirited enough to give their time. And it's very sad that such a tragic outcome took place that night. It emerged during the hearing that Alan could have been missing for more than 30 minutes. The coroner questioned why there hadn't been more checks on numbers. Today, the District Commissioner of Scouts, Stephen Dodd, on the left here, told the inquest how changes had now been made to ensure repeated head counts and rigorous risk assessment.
They're pleased to hear that the Scouts have made some recommendations already, and further that the coroner will be making more recommendations so that hopefully this can never ever happen again. Separate to that, there have been some civil proceedings ongoing in which the Scouts have helpfully made a formal admission of liability there. So the family are pleased about that there's been some recognition for this incident.
The coroner spoke of his sorrow for Alan's parents. They had faced a tremendous loss. Everything had to be done to ensure such a tragedy couldn't be repeated. Kevin Birch, BBC Look East, in Bury St Edmunds.
Well, late this afternoon, I spoke to Gail Scott-Spicer from the Scout Association and asked her for her reaction to the verdict.
Well, I think the first thing I'd like to say is that how very sorry we are that this tragic incident took place, and our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with Alan Locke's family and friends today. But you are accepting liability for what happened? We are accepting liability. Very sadly, Alan Locke did die in our care. You're looking at the ways to organise this kind of event in the future so that things like this don't happen. What will you be looking at? Well, after the incident, we undertook an internal inquiry, and that inquiry we've already implemented the recommendations from, and things that were included in that internal inquiry were to ensure that leaders, our volunteers, had more advice and information about head counts and taking risk assessments. We've also done quite a lot to improve our training for new volunteers as well. The problem is that, and you can understand why this might have happened, that the Scout leaders who were on duty on the day that the accident happened have
left scouting, it's going to be very difficult to get people to volunteer for this kind of activity, isn't it?
Well, I think all volunteers and potential volunteers need to be reassured by the support that scouting gives them. And the coroner himself today said that no criticism could directly be levelled at the Scout Association, while making suggestions about how rules for activities could be further tightened up.
This weekend, I'm sure there'll be parents who have young children going off to do scouting activities this weekend. What would you say to them if they're worried about what might happen to their children?
I think to remember that their children are some of 400,000 young people who are taking part safely in scouting this weekend.
Gail Scott Spicer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
UK border officials have carried out an operation off the Essex coast to recover Libyan currency worth £100 million. A patrol vessel escorted the ship into the port at Harwich, and the cash was removed and taken to a secure location. Earlier in the week, the ship had attempted to dock at Tripoli but was turned away. Let's get the full details now from Louise Holmes, who's at Harwich.
Well, Susie, as you said, the government say that the cargo ship, which is called the Sloman Provider, was being followed by them for more than a week and then was intercepted in the Mediterranean after an abandoned attempt to dock in Tripoli. It was then accompanied back here into Harwich by a border agency cutter, the HMC Vigilant, and also by the Essex and Kent Police Marine units, who was thought were there for added security. Now, the German company that run the ship deny reports that they were forced to return to UK waters and said that they did so themselves when they heard of the Libyan uprising. The ship has now left Harwich and it's thought that it's gone back to Bremen. Well, as for the money, £100 million, which is the equivalent to 200 million Libyan dinar, that is now being offloaded here in Harwich and is being held in a secure location. The context to all this is that Colonel Gaddafi is desperately trying to get hold of any Libyan currency that may have been printed in the UK. And his UK assets have now been frozen, and any exports were banned at the weekend by the Chancellor George Osborne under UN sanctions. So it seems that this time at least the plan to move the money has been thwarted.
Louise, thank you very much.
More details have been revealed today about the shooting incident involving American servicemen in Germany this week. One airman from RAF Lakenheath was shot dead and 2 others were injured in the attack at Frankfurt Airport. Tributes were paid today by the Lakenheath base commander.
The American flag flies at half-mast at Lakenheath, while at the bottom of the flagpole there are flowers and cards which pay tribute to this man, 25-year-old Nick Alden from Williamston, South Carolina, a member of the 48th Fighter Wing Security Forces.
Nick Alden is a typical of the young airmen that are serving in the U.S. forces today. A great young kid who came to us from Alaska. He's been here at just a short time at Lakenheath. He made an immediate impact on his arrival here. He's married. And we are doing everything we can to care for both his immediate family here and his extended family in the United States.
2 American airmen died in the attack. 21-year-old Zachary Kudebak was based at Ramstein in Germany. At Lakenheath this afternoon, Commanding Officer Colonel Quintas said security arrangements are constantly under review, but wouldn't be drawn further.
As a result of the tragedy in Germany, have you had to change your security arrangements at all?
Unfortunately, I can't talk about security measures here at Lakenheath. Really, in the best interest of our airmen and the protection of those airmen, any discussions about our procedures on how we protect them, and really, I just can't go into. Thank you.
2 people were wounded in the attack. Both are based at Lakenheath. They're in hospital in Germany. One is said to be critical, the other serious. Mike Liggins, BBC Look East, Lakenheath.
Well, still to come tonight, a look ahead to the weekend sport.
In tonight's special report, the Essex rescue workers helping out after the earthquake in New Zealand. And we've joined the crowds in Bury St Edmunds for today's royal visit.
Yes, I'm at St Edmundsbury Cathedral on the day Prince Charles came to town. I'll have that, plus your weekend weather, after a closer look at the news where you live.
There's been major disruption in Billericay today after a fire in the town centre. Several buildings, including 2 shops, were badly damaged. The high street has been closed all day.
This was the scene around 5 this morning. A charity shop in flames. The fire so intense the roof collapsed. Neighbouring buildings engulfed with fire and smoke. Crews forced to try and limit the damage from outside. Inside the building was too unstable.
We have historical buildings around here, and one of the problems we do face is fire travel through roof voids. So we were very keen to quickly check any spread of fire to any adjoining buildings. Unfortunately, the fire that had developed in the rear of the premise did travel up to the roof area.
As daylight arrived, the high street was shut. Firefighters damped down charred remains. The pitched roof reduced to a few wisps of smoke.
Fire investigators believe it may be some kind of electrical fault that started the fire in the first place. As a result, several of the shops here on Billericay High Street are now without power, and a structural engineer has been brought in to try and work out whether or not the buildings are safe.
And whilst those investigations continued, for local shopkeepers, the cost of damage too early to tell.
What we understand is that the fire broke out in the Oxfam shop and then spread through to our building, and fire damaged the first floor particularly, but the water damage has seeped through to the ground floor as well.
The police and fire service are now trying to work out what caused the fire that left 2 shops gutted, businesses without power and a high street closed for over 12 hours. Felicity Simper, BBC Look East, Billericay.
Meanwhile, a large part of an industrial estate in Great Yarmouth has been evacuated because of a fire at a paint warehouse. 13 fire crews are at CAP Fabrications on the Gapton Hall estate. A 200-metre exclusion zone has been put in place as there are gas cylinders on site. The Southend United footballer, jailed after admitting a fray, has been granted bail pending an appeal against his 20-week sentence. Ryan Hall was involved in a brawl outside a Southend nightclub after allegedly being subjected to racist comments.
The leader of Basildon Council is promising to resign if an illegal travellers' site hasn't been cleared by the end of spring. Tony Ball was speaking about Dale Farm after a meeting at Westminster.
Dale Farm still defiant despite the looming eviction. Many residents are staunch Catholics and seek solace in the church.
I'm obviously aware of the concerns of my parishioners, those who come to my church, and there's great anxiety. This has been hanging over them for many years now, and it's been very stressful for them.
Dale Farm's on Greenbelt land near Basildon in Essex, but around half the pitches were built without planning permission. Basildon Council is adamant. Planning law must be upheld. The illegal pitches must be cleared. But at Westminster, a last-ditch attempt to avoid a costly eviction. Amidst the tourists, a Dale Farm delegation arrives for a meeting at Portcullis House, where MPs have their offices.
Very important today. We're hoping that we will get some good results. This will definitely be the last resort.
At the Portcullis House meeting, a glimmer of hope. Central government's making £60 million available to help provide new pitches. And also, government-owned land elsewhere in Basildon could be transferred to the Travellers' ownership, but only enough for a few pitches.
The site must be cleared by spring this year, otherwise hold me to account and I will hold myself to account.
You will resign as council leader?
I will resign as council leader if it is the council's fault that the site is not cleared by spring this year.
The council could decide to issue the Travellers with 28 days' notice to leave later this month.
And there's more on that story on this weekend's edition of The Politics Show. It's on Sunday at midday on BBC One. Fundraisers have been celebrating after they passed the £3 million mark for a new children's hospice in Ipswich. The Treehouse appeal has only been running for a year. The new hospice will open in May for children in Suffolk and North Essex. The facilities include a hydrotherapy swimming pool.
We never imagined we'd get here within 12 months. We thought it might take us maybe 18 months or so, and we've just been blown away by the generosity of the people of Suffolk who've come forward. And actually, it's the people of Suffolk and North Essex who've got this hospice built, because they have overwhelmed us with so many donations coming in.
On to football now, and Norwich City fans have only had one player's name on their lips this week, haven't they, Phil?
Well, they certainly have, and that man was Andrew Crofts. He scored twice last weekend in the 2-0 win at Barnsley. His second, an absolute screamer. This weekend, the Canaries take on the Championship's bottom club, Preston. Their boss is Phil Brown. He spent several years managing in the Premier League.
I know how hard this has been. A lot of football knowledge. I've been at the Premier League level, so I know how hard it is, but as I said before, it's not about managers that win games. It's about players. And if I get players on the pitch that hopefully can perform the way they have been of late, hopefully we'll go and win.
At Ipswich, further recognition for Connor Wickham. The 17-year-old's been named the Championship Player of the Month for February. He scored a hat-trick at Doncaster and this memorable goal against Sheffield United. Wickham's one of the gems to have come through the club's academy, who recently welcomed back town legend Russell Osman to work with the youngsters. Tom Williams been to meet him.
An Ipswich hero from the club's golden era.
Well, that was very well taken indeed. Osman came in there completely by surprise.
Russell Osman made his debut in 1977. He said he'd be back. It's like he's never been away. Plenty of memories to savour and anecdotes to share. He came through the youth ranks at Ipswich. Now he's in charge of the under-18s, responsible for training his successors.
It doesn't seem 26 years ago when I left. It's nice to see one or two of the old faces that are still here around the club. And it's nice to be back involved in football full-time.
And I'll walk out, come on. And then I'll go.
Do the youngsters here in the academy come up to you and talk to you about your playing days?
They haven't yet. It's more about the film we did in 1981, Escape to Victory. They don't mention too much about the football days. So now and again I have to show them that I have kicked a football before and join in a little bit of training to make sure I've got that little bit of respect from them.
Russell played a starring role here at Portman Road for almost a decade. A stalwart in central defence, he made nearly 400 appearances, most famously helping Sir Bobby Robson's side to UEFA Cup glory in 1981.
And Ipswich win the UEFA Cup.
Days to cherish for club.
Good challenge by Osman.
For country too.
He knows what it's like to play at every level for England. Obviously, he's a bit of a hero here with the supporters of the Bobby Robson era and stuff. So, yeah, I'm delighted to have Russell on board.
It's the 30th anniversary of the side that won the UEFA Cup in '81 this year. And hopefully soon, under Paul Jewell's command, then this current first team will start picking up a bit of silverware and we can start celebrating that.
The records of his contribution are there for all to see. Now he's hoping to help restore the glory days at Portman Road. Tom Williams, BBC Look East, Ipswich.
Also in action this weekend are Colchester and Southend. The U's host playoff contenders Southampton at the Community Stadium in League One, while in League Two, Southend could move up to 7th place with a win over Morecambe. At the European Indoor Athletics Championships in Paris, Andrew Assaji from Harlow in Essex qualified for the 800 metres semi-finals, but only just he qualified by 1,000th of a second. To follow your football club's progress this weekend, tune into your local BBC radio station, or you can find up-to-date stories and information on the BBC Sport website.
You're watching Look East from the BBC. Coming up, a grand design fit for a prince.
The death toll in the New Zealand earthquake has today reached 160, and the grim search for victims goes on.
Rescue workers from this region have been playing their part, including members of the Essex Fire and Rescue Unit. Look East journalist Maria Veronese, who was brought up in Christchurch, has gone back to New Zealand to send us this report.
Twisted, shattered and deformed, Christchurch is a mess. When you're up close and personal with the devastation, it's not hard to understand why so many people have died here. The mission is now one of recovery, but it's not to say everyone here is still hoping for a miracle. Among the heat and dust, Essex Fire and Rescue are working around the clock. They're part of the hugely appreciated British search and rescue team.
The PGC building was a 5-storey structure that pancake collapsed. So we've been working our way through that building to see if we can locate anyone that was known to have been in there at the time of the earthquake.
What are your impressions of the search so far? It's obviously disappointing you haven't found anyone alive.
Yeah, it's always disappointing that we don't get the icing on the cake of finding the live casualties, but there's also the other way we look at it is, you know, those we do find, unfortunate that didn't make it, you know, will be closure for the relatives of that person. So that's also a benefit we can bring to people.
Out in the suburbs, hundreds are still without power, water and sewage. Community spirit, though, is winning through. There's everything from makeshift laundrettes to countless stories of generosity, along with a smattering of patriotism.
We have 14 people sitting around our table every evening. We've got 3 homeless people staying with us at the moment. Everybody's looking after everybody else.
Oh, it's been amazing. Everyone is helping their neighbours. This is a community which is a bit isolated from Christchurch, so it's always been very tight-knit, and it has been really wonderful to meet people that you might have smiled at or said hello to in the street, but you actually get to talk to them and find out more about them. So I think it's been fantastic.
Aftershocks are frequent, and there's an underlying fear that more big quakes are still in store. Either way, most are choosing to stay and tough it out. Maria Veronese, BBC Look East in Christchurch, New Zealand.
The Prince of Wales was in Bury St Edmunds today to see the final touches to one of the country's biggest renovation projects.
The new tower at St Edmundsbury Cathedral was completed in 2005, and now attention is focused on a stunning new vaulted ceiling. The Prince also showed a keen interest in the new organ. Let's go to Bury now, and Alex Dolan.
Welcome to Bury St Edmunds Cathedral. You can probably hear in the background the organist is rehearsing ahead of tomorrow's major recitals. It's the first recital with the new organ. It's been completely rebuilt. It's got 3,550 pipes, and each one had to be individually tuned, so that took an incredible 8 weeks to tune it. Now, the Prince of Wales was here earlier today. He's been a leading supporter of the cathedral over the years, as Kim Riley reports.
Looking its very best in the March sunshine, the cathedral's new tower. The Prince of Wales was patron of the project that fulfilled the dream.
He's been the one who's really kept nudging us in the right direction. So when we have felt a little drained or exhausted, he said, no, come on, you know, do achieve it, make it happen. So and having that kind of backing is good. So yes, his being here today is a bit like putting a rather beautiful full stop to a glorious sentence.
The Prince arrived to meet the craftsmen behind 2 more major projects, the completion of the vaulted ceiling and the refurbishment of the organ at a cost of more than £1.4 million. The Prince then tried his own hand at the mighty instrument.
It was quite right and proper that my colleague David Humphreys played the organ for the first time after it had been dedicated, but it's very, very pleasing indeed to state that the second person to play it was indeed His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, who played 1 or 2 chords, very loud ones, and some very low rumbly pedal notes, and recalled his days of learning the piano.
Meanwhile, at the Theatre Royal, excitement levels had reached around 9 on the Richter scale. Children from Hillside Primary in Ipswich enjoying a workshop with Dance East.
You can give them an idea and they take it and they create something entirely unexpected, which is just beautiful.
We held our arms high like a puppet, and then they snapped the strings and we dropped our arms.
The country's last surviving working Regency playhouse has had a £5 million makeover. The Prince took a seat to watch a performance by the company Ballet Black. At the Prince's side, Emma Martin. She joined the theatre as an intern a year ago. Now she's the full-time marketing officer.
They're just going from strength to strength, the schemes here, and being one of the first interns they ever had, it's such a great thing for me to say that I've now got a full-time job in the career I want to be in.
It was all very jolly. The Prince in good form, chatting to the children. You felt this was an occasion right up his street. Kim Riley, BBC Look East, Bury St Edmunds.
Well, it was a glorious day in Bury St Edmunds today and across much of the region. If we look at the satellite picture, you can see clear skies across East Anglia, giving us plenty of sunshine. For tonight, though, the cloud is starting to roll back in once more. It'll stay dry overnight. Just at the end of the night, we could see the odd spot or two of rain in the north of the region. Now, temperatures could get lower without that cloud, but with that cloud, they're likely to get down to freezing or just below. The low for tonight, -1 degree Celsius, which is 30 degrees in Fahrenheit. The wind's staying light and coming from a northerly direction. So what about the weekend weather? Well, I'm going to take you to the pressure chart now. You'll see this feature heading down towards East Anglia during the day on Saturday. That's a cold front, and unfortunately, it's going to introduce quite a bit of cloud and the odd spot of light rain or drizzle. You'll also notice high pressure is still the dominant feature of our weather on the chart, so that keeps things fairly settled over the next few days. So tomorrow, a bit of a gloomy, cloudy start to the day, mainly dry across the region, but the odd spot or two of light rain or drizzle at times. If we look at the temperatures, you'll see that they will struggle through the day. At their best, 6 degrees Celsius, which is just 43 Fahrenheit. The wind's still coming from a northeasterly direction, and it will feel quite chilly because that wind will pick up a little bit more tomorrow. Now, during the afternoon, you'll notice a gap in the cloud in that northeastern corner of East Anglia. If we get any brightness or sunshine, it's likely to be here, but for most of us, it is a bit of a cloudy story through the afternoon as well. So here's the next 5 days. It stays pretty settled, actually. We start the weekend with a good covering of cloud. Into Sunday, it looks drier, but there's more potential for that to cloud to break up and allow us some brightness and sunshine. So that looks like the better day weather-wise of the weekend's weather. It does stay fairly chilly, but settled through Monday and Tuesday. Clearer skies, and we should see some brightness and sunshine at the beginning of the week. But you'll notice that the winds become southwesterly by Tuesday. The high pressure repositions itself and sends in these southwesterly winds. That makes us vulnerable to some Atlantic weather systems, so it could become changeable into the middle of next week. Quickly, here are the overnight lows. We could get down to freezing or just below with those clear skies. Stuart and Susie, back to you.
Alex, thank you very much.
Those children were gorgeous,
weren't they?
Television and radio presenters from the Look East region have spent the day in London learning how to be funny for money. They joined colleagues from around the country at a boot camp for stand-up comedy. They were given professional feedback from entertainers like Hugh Dennis. Our local stand-ups take to the stage in Bury St Edmunds next Wednesday. It's all in aid of comic relief, and tickets are available from the Arc.
Well, our own Jenny Kirk, we saw her in the film there, was among the stand-ups, and today in Cambridge, Lenny Henry had this advice for her.
Jenny, you have to practice. Being funny ain't no game. So if you've got friends, I hope you've got friends, practice your jokes on them. They will hate you, but sometimes they will laugh. When they laugh, write those jokes down. You must go to various venues and try and get as much stage time as you can. They call it open mic. You go on at the beginning and people throw things at you, but anything they laugh at, you keep. If you're doing a 5-minute spot, you need to do about 25 minutes, because then you'll get bits and pieces that you can use and glue together and make a 5-minute spot. But if you try and just do a 5-minute spot, it'll be crap. Trust me, Jenny. Jenny, I love you. I care for you. Be funny.
He's meant to be helping her,
I think
not scaring her.
How much open mic stage time do you think she's got under the belt by now?
I'm not sure that there's a huge amount of that being done.
Are we talking no stage time?
I think that might be the case, but I'm sure she's going to be brilliant.
I did ask her to try
funny.
one of her jokes on me. I said, I'll be your friend, tell me a joke, and she refused to tell me.
I don't blame her, actually, Stuart.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Watch your backs. Next on BBC One, it's the grand wax-off for Red Nose Day on The One Show.
It's hard to imagine how different our working lives were just a few decades ago. The 60s and 70s divided work into a war zone between them and us. And the 80s encouraged risk-taking with the promise of power and huge rewards. Today, our work's not just what we do, it's part of who we are. Now I'm bringing you the whole story told by the people who lived it. The British at Work, Thursday at 9 on BBC Two.
Acts, are you ready? Here we go.
Baby, I like it.
2 more celebrity acts have fought their way to the final.
You were amazing.
Which dancing divas will be joining them this week? Get ready for Red Nose Day on BBC One with Let's Dance for Comic Relief. Saturday at 6:40 and catch up on BBC iPlayer.
We're tackling your consumer problems in Rip Off Britain, half an hour away after Friday's One Show.
Are we live?
I think we are live.
We are live. We're live. We're live. Hello, friends. Thanks for tuning in to the One Show with Alex Jones.
And Chris Evans. Coming up from our top team tonight.
All right, John Sargent tackles the tyrant, Dennis the Menace on his birthday.
Jay Rayner's feeling peckish with Scotch eggs, Asian styly.
Mike Dilger tracks down the rarest reptile in Britain.
And ladies will be getting their own back on their fellas in a mass live wax-off for Comic Relief.
Ooh, but first, let's welcome our guest, a very talented writer, actor and comedian who's been described as...
a giant albatross hopping on stilts.
Yeah, a graceful grasshopper.
A stick insect with glasses.
And an upright lizard being given electric shock therapy.
It's Stephen Merchant!
Hi, Steve.
Hello. Yes, 2 clicks, absolutely.
Was that the most tiptoes you've ever had to use to kiss a guest?
I was nearly on point, like they do in
Oh,
Belgium.
aren't you tall? You're very
tall. Oh, Evans, will you stop talking about my height?
Are you bored of that?
I've got nothing. People have been talking about my height since I was about 4.
Because you're very tall.
Yeah, I know, but it's not interesting to me, is it? It's
Oh,
not like I'm just
okay.
going to go, what do you mean, Evans? I'm tall.
I didn't realise we were here to interest you.
Yes.
OK.
Now, Stephen, we know that you're a big fan of physical comedy.
Yes, I am, yes.
Looks like you nailed it with that dancing.
Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, pretty good. I was busting all my best grooves.
And you want to see physical comedy make a comeback, don't you?
I'm a fan of the physical comedian, you know. I think it used to be very, very fashionable. I grew up watching Laurel and Hardy, Chaplin, all those sort of people. It seems to have died out, not quite as voguish now. So, yeah, whenever I do sort of stuff, you know, like in the extras or whatever on stand-up, I like to try and bring a bit of that back. If you are, as you described, looking like a giant stick insect with glasses, then inevitably what can you...
In a good way.
Just read what I'm told to read, that's
Sure.
all. That's what's going on there.
Yeah.
So you are Hollywood boy officially now. Tell everybody about your current standings in the movie charts.
Yeah, listen, currently in the US, the #1 movie is Hall Pass. Who's in it? It's Muggins. Yeah. Second movie in the US is called Romeo and Juliet. Who does a voice? It's Muggins. So that means that I am currently... Because I'm the only person who links those 2 films, which means that I am currently the biggest box office draw in America. Not officially. No one's actually officially
Oh,
told
it's
me
official
that.
now.
Yeah, that's
the One Show, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
But you're going on stand-up soon, and
doing
we'll
a
be
stand-up
talking
tour.
about your new tour a little bit later on.
All right, now, at the end of the show, we're going to have a mass wax-off taking place for Comic Relief.
Hairy men will be screaming and squealing as the ladies in their lives let rip with their waxing strips. Oh, look at that, it's like a forest down there.
It's like a forest down where? Down there, good, excellent. Stephen?
Yes?
Alex doesn't think you're that hairy, do you?
Well, the reason I say that is because sometimes when people are blonde, they're not that hairy. Could you pull the shirt down?
I'm not putting any shirts down.
Come on.
You start and I'll maybe follow.
All right.
That's the hair where it needs to be.
Do you fancy being waxed?
No.
It's for Comic Relief.
come
I don't care.
Come on.
I'm not a maniac.
I'm not a maniac.
Well, we've got Hendon Second's rugby team with us who are very much willing to be waxed for Comic Relief.
Well done.
Show us how hairy you are, guys. See, not that hairy.
Not that hairy.
No, not that
They just want to be on the telly and they will do anything.
But
They
it
want to
will-
stay out all night before
But it will
tomorrow's
hurt.
game. Yeah, go on,
Honestly, it's going to hurt. And you can help by donating £1 to show your support for all our volunteers.
To donate to Comic Relief right now, just text RED to 70011 and Comic Relief will get £1 to help transform the lives of poor and vulnerable people all over the UK and across Africa.
Text costs £1 plus your standard network message charge, and the whole £1 goes to Comic Relief.
You must be 16 or over and please ask the bill pays permission, full terms and conditions, and more information go to BBC.
Time now for Jay's Foodie Friday.
And tonight, the story of how the nation has fallen back in love with a little round sausagey snack.
If I was to throw one of these into a crowded room, it would be regarded as a dangerous object. The Scotch egg is